you could be the SME on the truth, right? But if you're a rear end and you treat people poorly, you make that quote unquote truth very unattractive. It's like, I don't want to know your truth, so to speak, right? And so, and are any of us perfect representatives of, and again, in my case, Jesus? We all have issues. We all have junk in our trunk, right? Welcome to the EQ Gangster podcast, where you will learn practical tools to grow your mental and emotional health and intelligence to be the best version of yourself, both at work and at home. It is real, raw, and transformational. The journey of emotional growth isn't easy, but it's worth it. I believe in you. This episode is sponsored by Arrowhead Leadership Consulting. What are your organization's biggest pain points right now? Low EQ leaders, weak managers, toxic culture, high turnover, low engagement, leader development, lagging behind company growth, no company career path. Let us know if your organization needs leadership coaching, workshops, training, or keynotes. Visit arrowhead-leadership.com for more details. Arrowhead-leadership.com. EQ Gangsters, what is up? What's up? I'm thankful for hotels. I'm thankful for pillows. I'm thankful for cool artwork in hotels. I'm thankful for tattoos. What? I am thankful for cool tattoo artists. I'm thankful for tattoo artists that aren't stoned when they're tattooing. That was my first tattoo, actually. This is another funny story, another day. This episode is about faith, and I haven't talked about, it's kind of faith and EQ. I haven't talked about, I talk about my faith, in some of my episodes, but this is one where it's going to be specifically kind of about faith, not necessarily my faith, well, although I'll bring it up, but just about faith in general. So I've had an opportunity with some of my clients that I'm working with that have predominantly different faiths, like very different, very, very different faiths. And it's been really fascinating talking to other people that interact with these people with different faith backgrounds. And with, talking with people that don't have a faith, interact with people that strongly believe their faith, their belief system and stuff, which also impacts worldview. And what's fascinating is the third parties that don't have a faith, how they feel about those people with faith is based on how those people with faith treat the people without faith. Has nothing to do with their belief. Nothing. It's been fascinating. I just spent some time with some people that have spent a lot of time with people from these different faiths, and almost entirely their perspective on those people and those people's faiths and worldviews was based on how each of those different faith groups treated them. Fascinating. So I thought, man, okay, well, I love Jesus. That's my particular faith. That's my belief, which affects my worldview. And it just made me think, well, how do I treat people? How do I interact with other people? When I interact with other people, can they tell that I'm different? Can they tell that, okay, I don't know exactly what the deal is with this guy, but he treats me differently, hopefully better maybe than other people do. Or maybe they just watch how I lead or how I coach other people or how they experience me. I mean, and obviously some of it, for those of y'all that know me, I have a very kind of unique and I would argue strong personality, which is also, I would say, impacted and affected by my belief system. Now, that being said, how closely, am I a good representative of somebody who loves and follows Jesus? Probably not. I mean, I know, like, I have so many issues and so much junk in my trunk, and my pride and selfishness and shortcomings and sin and failures, and I still have people pleasing that I'm working through and working on actively. So, but it just made me think, man, what do people, when they walk into a quote unquote Christian church, how are they treated? Are they welcomed? Are they even recognized? It's the other thing too, is like, you guys know I do jujitsu. Walking into every gym, I go into all, because I travel so much. I bring my gi and no gi stuff to a lot of the places where I travel. How do you treat your new people? Now, I'm new to the gym, but I'm not new to jujitsu. So when I put on my belt, they can see, oh, okay, this guy, he's been rolling for a hot minute. So even though I'm not new to jujitsu, I'm new to that gym. But still, I'm new to that gym. How does that gym treat me as a new person? Because they, normally, if you're training at a gym consistently, you know who's new and who's not new. They're not like 10,000 people that go to a jujitsu gym. So, you typically are going to see the same people regularly. So that's why for me, because I started jujitsu later on in life, and I did Taekwondo when I was a kid, I'm painfully aware of the new person experience. So that's why I love rolling with the new people. That's why I love greeting new people. That's why I love making new people feel important. When I go to a company, a client, I mean, and of course I'm the new guy walking into a client, obviously, but like, let's say, and a lot of my clients are not one and dones. A lot of times I'm with a client for a year or 2 years or 3 years. And so obviously I'm going to know who those new leaders are within an organization, because I've been working with the same group of leaders for whatever period of time. I make a lot of time and attention to spend with the new leaders. I want that new person experience to be positive. I want them to feel shoved, seen, heard, understood, valued, recognized. And that takes time and intention and attention. And, so how does you could even do this with your company, right? Not just a faith background. Like, obviously you can do the point of this was like your faith background. How does your faith make people feel? And I don't know, that may be right or wrong, but a lot of us do that. You could have the mark, what do you call that? You could have, you could be the SME on the truth, right? But if you're a rear end and you treat people poorly, you make that quote unquote truth very unattractive. It's like, I don't want to know your truth, so to speak, right? And so, and are any of us perfect representatives of, and again, in my case, Jesus? We all have issues. We all have junk in our trunk, right? I'm my prayer is that, and I'm already older than a truckload of people. Man, my prayer is that, I was just telling somebody recently, if I figure out how to be less prideful and less selfish and more consumed by my relationship with Jesus and
am a better example and representative of somebody who walks with and knows and talks with Jesus. And man, I just feel like I need another 100 years before I get close to something like that. There are two chapters, Romans chapter 7 and Romans chapter 8, that talk about, the struggle or the war with the flesh. And man, it's a constant battle. So anyway, that just watching this dynamic has been really fascinating. So that's what it made me think of is, how do I make others feel? What kind of representative am I of my relationship with Jesus, and also with what I do, executive coaching, and working with the companies that I work with. Are companies proud to say, "Oh man, our executive coach, man, he's bad to the bone"? Do they even talk about getting coaching with me? Or, well, let's not talk about this guy because he's kind of weak sauce, right? Like, how do you represent yourself? How do you represent your faith, right? It was a question to start off with, but following on, how do you represent yourself? How do you represent your company? How do you represent your family? Are you a good representation of your family? And not from a people-pleasing standpoint, but from a, I don't know, like, are you representing yourself in a way that you want to represent yourself? There are some people that I'm not sure they're aware of how they represent themselves. We were talking about somebody else, senior leader in an organization that knows the right people, that is very toxic, treats people very, very poorly. And I think part of the reason is because of who they know. And they know that they'll never get fired. And it's almost like a pass to treat people very, very poorly. And I'm like, wow, that's tough. That's very, there are not many people that like to work with or around this other leader that I just mentioned. And that leader changes the environment. Wherever that leader goes, it completely shifts the vibe in a room when they show up. It's just like, it's a pretty, actually a couple leaders that I'm thinking of. It's like everybody bristles when a couple of these leaders walk into a room. And it's just that's not the presence that I know that I don't want to have. I don't, anyway, that's not the presence that I want to have. So, but think about it, because I think it takes intention and attention. How do you want to represent your faith? How do you want to represent yourself? How do you want to represent your family? And who do you need to be in order to do that well, in order to represent your faith well, in order to represent you well, in order to represent your family well? Who do you need to be? Who do you need to become? What do you need to work on? What are one or two of those action steps that you can take in order to start aligning more accurately to some of those answers to those questions? Emotionally healthy leaders create emotionally healthy cultures, which lead to maximum results, outcome, performance, engagement, and impact.